Right now, creating health, mind, body, and spirit with Dr. Kenneth Davis.
Good evening and welcome to the show. I left you with homework to do this week. And as you remember, we started the show last week with the principle of if there were no rules and I can't fail and money is not an issue, what is my dream? So the question I ask you is, did you do your homework this week? Did you write it out? Did you put it away for 3 days and then bring it back and make any changes? Did you limit yourself? Did you feel that, well, I can't have it be that way? So remember, the process was to, if there were no rules and I can't fail and money is not an issue, what's the dream in my life? That was the first thing that I asked you to do. The second step of the process was, once you had written that out and evaluated and looked at that and had the dream, business and personal, then the next question was, who do I need to be or become to have my life be this way? And I asked you to rate that, each one that you listed, from on a scale of -10 to +10. And I said that on this show I would then give you step 3. So let's go into step 3 a little bit. Step 3 is what we call the quality quantifier. This is a specific technique. Now, if I said to you out there that on tomorrow morning you were absolutely definitively going to win the lotto for millions and millions of dollars, absolutely, it's going to happen, could you imagine in your mind what that would feel like for you? How would that make you feel? So I just use that as an analogy. We could all imagine and feel and experience within ourselves how that would feel to each and every one of ourselves. So in doing the quality quantifier technique, the brain, the way our brain is programmed is we can't change something if we're a -10 in our ability to be confrontational, for example. It's very difficult to go from a -10 to a +10 immediately. But we can go from a -10 to a 4 and then move to 10. So what I'm getting at is, if you take your list out and you recorded from -10 to +10, those areas of your B part of you that you needed to change, I'm going to ask you right now to think of one of those areas and take the minus number, meaning that if there's an aspect of our B part of us that needed to change and it was a lower minus number, in our minds, using this quality quantifier technique, we can ask ourselves, or I can ask you to visualize or picture. So let's say you were a -8 in confrontation with another person. I can ask you what a +4 would feel. Let's not even go to +4. Let's go to -4. So if we were a -8, we could all experience what that would be for ourselves. So in the weaker areas of your B part, the quality quantifier technique is the ability to be able to visualize and see yourself in that lowest number, so to speak. So then, using your mind and the ability of visualization, you want to see yourself at a higher number, but you can't go from -8 to +10 immediately. Your brain will not accept that. But you can go from a -8 to a -4. So let's imagine, all of us out there, that if there is a weaker aspect of our personality self, whatever that may be for you, imagine yourself being at that number and see if you can go up 4 numbers of what that would feel like. So your brain can accept that. So when I ask you to visualize that, you also have to get the feeling inside of your body and being how that would feel to be a -4. How would you look? How would you talk? How would you stand? How would your posture be? How would you breathe? What would your facial expression be? How would you hold yourself? How would you talk to another person? So that's what you want to focus on. Now, if you're a -8 and you go to a -4, then you want to see if you can go to a -2. So what would a -2 feel like in that area of the B part of you? Same principle. How would you look? How would you be standing? How would you be breathing? How would you walk? How would you talk? What's the feeling inside of your being? Then you want to move up. What would 0 feel like? What would +2 feel like? What would +4 feel like? What would +6 feel like? Now, it may be in those weaker areas that you can only get to a +4 or +6, but you have to keep working on that. So, the step 3 part of this process of who would I need to be or become based upon if there were no rules, I can't fail, I can have it be any way I want. The third part is the quality quantifier. Take those weaker areas that you listed, your minuses, and move them through your mind gradually to approach a +10. And you can do this in your car, going to a job interview, going to work in the morning, going to a relationship, going to wherever. Remember, your mind cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It can't tell the difference. So your ability to visualize and create inside your B part, remember, it's all about changing the being, you. Remember, be, do, have. The principle, universal law. Be it, it will allow you to do and take action, allowing you to have. Not, if I have it, then I'll take action, and then I'll become it. As I said last week, it never ever works that way. It never works that way. So, you now have the third step. For those of you out there that are tuning into the show and didn't make it, very briefly, I gave an exercise to do. The principle of be, do, have. So what I asked people to do was to write out your dream. If you can't fail, there's no rules. It can be any way you want it to be. What's your dream for your business life and your personal life? The second step I asked is that once you write it out, it could be 30 pages. Put it away for 3 days, take it out, make any adjustments. The second part was to list who would I need to be or become to have my life be this way. So maybe that means I'd have to exercise, lose weight, stop drinking coffee, alcohol, exercise more, communicate, confront better, whatever that. We all know what those weaker areas are within ourselves. I'd have to meditate, pray, do yoga, whatever that is. Then, once you listed that, you're rating on a scale of -10 to +10 each particular area that you list. Now I'm giving you the third step, the quality quantifier. To take the weaker areas, to change inside you through visualization, moving yourself up the ladder towards a +10. Take 1 or 2 of these every week and work on them. You'll begin to change you inside. Remember, who you are inside determines how well what you do works. I'll say that again. Who you are inside determines how well what you do works. Also, number 2, success, whatever that success may be, comes from you, not to you. Success comes from you, to you. So if you're in business, if you're a physician, chiropractor, acupuncturist, health food store, whatever business you run or are in, the success of your business comes from you. From you. Success comes from you, not to you. Whether you're looking for more clients, customers, new patients, or whatever that may be, comes from you. That's why you could take a business, and the business is $1 million business. If you put someone who's $100,000 practitioner or business person into $1 million business, they may only see it and bring it down to $100,000. Now, if you had somebody who is $1 million practitioner, or if that B part of them says, I'm going to be successful, you can put them into a $100,000 business, and they're going to grow that business to be a $1 million business because their B part of them is strong. And these are concepts that we have to understand about life. So when people say, well, I can't make it, I'm not successful or whatever, it has to do with you inside. And you can change you through these easy steps, but it takes diligence and practice and perseverance on a daily basis. So, do your exercises, change your life, transform it, change the B part. Remember, success comes from you, not to you. Whatever comes from you, not to you. Change the B part of you. Okay, let's continue onward. Last week, I just want to also talk a little bit again about the concepts we began to get into the study of elementals. I use the analogy of the clay that we're given every day. How these elementals, our thoughts and emotions, are the building blocks of our personality, and how we can change our personality through the practice of introspection. We talked about introspection, or looking within, the ability to go inside ourselves, into our subconscious, to be able to study the nature of our emotions, our thoughts, our desires, our weaknesses, our attachments, and how, through these thoughts and emotions, dictate and the way in which we react to the world. And I mentioned that we, or an individual, wants to become master over their thoughts and emotions, not enslaved by them. So the ability to do introspection, if we could do introspection every single night prior to bed, we would change our personality. We would become a new human being in a certain way. Just like I mentioned that we have a new body every 7 years. Every cell is changed. So we have to work within ourselves to change ourselves. Then we grow. We become awake. We become aware. We become sensitive. We're able to attune ourselves to the more positive vibrations that exist in the world and around us. And once we can attune ourselves and our vibration and our energies are vibrating at a higher frequency, then that attunement to whatever becomes what we call at-one-ment to. And at-one-ment means that we're now resonating and vibrating to whatever it is that we want to vibrate to, meaning that we can feel what it's like to be the wind, to be in nature, to feel that feeling and attune ourselves. Now we're growing and we're evolving and we're moving beyond the realm of reactivity, meaning reacting to the things and circumstances and situations from our programming and our brainwashing that we all have through where we grew up, our environment, what our parents taught us, our teachers, our preachers, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to stay on elementals, but we want to use this practice of introspection to help to get clean house, so to speak, in our subconscious of these emotions and thoughts that kind of are negative, that torment us and affect us in a negative way. I also talked about, to refresh your minds, I talked about the fact that in understanding our bodies and the fact that we have 3 bodies, not one body. And I mentioned that the physical body, which we all have, in a way, no different than the animals in a certain way. Because we have, the animal also has bones, nerves, blood, tissue, organs, glands, and so forth. So we have this dense physical body. It's our temple, it's our house. But I mentioned that we have another body, or we have subtle energy bodies. Every human being has these bodies. The body of emotion, or the emotional body, that I call the psychical body. The body that is of the greater dimension, a higher dimension, the 4th dimension. In that dimension, we're not our body. We're not seeing the third dimension that our physical body is, where you can only be in one place at one time. But our mind can go future, past, and so forth. We have another body. We have the noetical body, the body of the fifth dimension. The noetical body, we all have a noetical body. The fifth dimensional body, noetical, is the body that allows a human being to have thought and reason and clarity. So I mentioned last week that the noetical thought body and the emotional body, the psychical body, are linked together. And they're called the psychonoetical. Because it's very difficult for a human being to have thought without some emotion. But we don't want it to be all emotion and desire and weakness with little thought. We want 90% thought, maybe 10% emotion. Most illnesses I mentioned and imbalances that manifest in the physical body, the material physical, comes from thought, the way we think or don't think. It happens with disruption in our subtle energy bodies. So the way in which we have thought or don't think clearly, or emotion, weaknesses, passions, attachments to, disruption, those energetically affect these subtle bodies. We don't know it though. But then we manifest and we see disruption that manifests on our physical body. And individuals that are healers or so-called clairvoyants, who are sensitive, can actually see the disruption on these subtle energy bodies first before it manifests into the physical, and work to fix that. And there's ways of doing that before it manifests into the physical. So again, many illnesses and imbalances manifesting into the physical body happen first at these subtle levels. So that's why it behooves us not to work on a daily basis through these practices of introspection, observation that I talked about in meditation, and prayer, and other disciplines, to be able to balance these other bodies, which in turn are going to generate greater health and well-being in the physical body. I also mentioned that we have what's called an etheric double, a mold or that makes our bodies, a mold that comes with us when we're born and leaves upon the death of the physical body. We all have an etheric double. In this etheric double is every cell, molecule, atom, organ, tissue, gland that will become this physical body, that directs DNA to take tissue and make an eye or an organ or a gland first. The double does that. Now this etheric double, as I mentioned, there's a double of this emotional psychical body, and there's a double of the noetical. And it's linked, so the three bodies are linked. So really we have three bodies kind of almost in one. Now, we also mentioned that there is prana or chi, or what we call the etheric energy or vitality, courses through the double, providing the double's needed energy to filter into the physical body. So what happens, though, is that every day, as we mentioned earlier, it's as if you're given this chi and vitality at 100%. And we want to use it properly, as we've talked about in our last show. Most people, the human beings, the majority of them, take this, or not even aware of this sustenance that they're given, and deplete this energy very rapidly through stress, worry, tension, prejudices, envy, jealousies, and so on and so forth. So here we are, and we don't have any more of our vitality left, chi, sustenance. So in my practice, and what I've experienced, is that when many people that say, and you may yourself or no individual say, I just don't have any energy. I'm fatigued. what you're really saying is, I don't have any vitality left. This chi, this prana, which I mentioned earlier last show, that chi, vitality, prana, same thing, is universal. It's in the universe. So as we breathe in and we take in oxygen, we're also taking in prana as well, chi. But we're not aware of it. We have to become aware of it. So, also mentioned earlier was that when our thoughts and emotions are not aligned properly, and we're not present, and we're past or future, well, there's no breath. And when there's no breath, we also waste this vitality very rapidly. So this vitality, this ether, this prana, chi, is needed to course through that etheric double, energizing the cells of our physical body and allowing our body to function at its optimal. So we'll talk more about this in later shows. So this was primarily a summary of our first show, and a lot of information there, and there's a lot of truth. So emotions and thoughts, something that Lisa and I learned early on, was the basis for why illness and imbalance happens. So with that, let's take a break. Welcome back, and getting back into the depth of the work of natural force healing. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we call the 5 fiery elements of disease and breakdown, and I'll give you a little history of how this came to be. As we've talked about in past shows about the 3-pronged model of health, of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual angle, and how in order for one to be healthy and have well-being and continue to grow and move forward, there has to be balance of that triune model of body, mind, and spirit. So as I began to work with this and understand this triune model, and the work was developed to evaluate, as we've talked about and demonstrated in shows past, of how we can assess through our system and what has been developed, how we can identify which of these angles is the priority each and every time a patient or a client or an individual is tested. And again, since Lisa, my Lisa, who was the one or the individual that really inspired, and are we all inherently born with a triune model of health that's really perfect? Is it that blueprint within us perfect all the time? Well, what she did was she proceeded to shoo me out of the house early in the morning and said, well, come back late in the afternoon and see if I can come up with that information for you, which she did. So when we came back, or I came back home and asked her if she had kind of received inspired material and knowledge about why this triune model becomes imbalanced in the first place, she proceeded to explain to me that there are what are called the 5 fiery elements. Now, fiery in that sense, and these are not the elements, for example, associated with the model of the 5 elements in acupuncture. These 5 elements are primarily the components that are responsible for why this triune breaks down. And I'm going to go through these and read them in a sense, and we'll discuss them in the way in which we teach in our workshops and seminars, and how it was received by Lisa many years ago. And I also want to explain that these 5 fiery elements are within each and every one of us in our process of moving forth through moving to growth, meaning that when we take somebody in natural force healing and we test them and they have imbalance, they have 1, 2, or all of these particular fiery elements that are affecting them. And as an individual gets worked on, and these layers of the onion peel away, then the element, or this fiery element that they're being affected by or is part of their makeup, also peels away and gets cleared. So, not as much, but with many of my new patients going back, or clients by other practitioners that we've taught, we will have the patient or the client in the initial stages of their care read these 5 elements. And usually they can identify with 1, 2, or all of them, and after a given period of time we have them read it again, and there's a dramatic shift or change that happens where they feel that, you know what, that's not me anymore. And that's dynamic. That's a dynamic shift that happens in a person. That's why we mentioned earlier that natural force healing, or the work, is not a talk therapy. That these powerful positive universal force energies, these spiritual energies that are utilized and amplified, that have been given to allow dramatic healing to take place on these levels of physical, mind, spirit, that you, or the individual that becomes a practitioner or utilizer of the work, has the ability to be the conduit to amplify these particular energies. So as I was mentioning, that these 5 fiery elements are the basis of breakdown in all of humanity. So again, in the initial components, an individual will have 1, 2, or all of these elements, but as a person gets worked on, they begin to shift. Now, also, the component of natural force healing in the process of the work, it doesn't mean that other disciplines and therapies that could not be utilized to help an individual peel those layers of the onion and help move these elements out of the picture in them so that they can move through that. I just want to be clear about that. So let's talk a little bit. Let me tell you what the 5 fiery elements are. Number 1, the first fiery element is what we call constriction. The second fiery element is denial. The third fiery element is what we call the evolution of the soul. The fourth fiery element is abstaining from life. And the fifth fiery element is what we refer to as abusive nature. So, what do you think the biggest constriction is? So, I'm going to read a little bit of this to you, and we'll discuss it a little bit. Hopefully we won't run out of time tonight. Constriction. See, constriction is one of the most important reasons for breakdown in the areas of body, mind, and spirit. See, by our very nature, we can cause a constriction and lack of energy flow in our being. The major constraints. What are these major constrictions or constraints? Number 1, lack of sharing love and kindness to our fellow human beings, animals, and nature. Fear may be the biggest or the strongest of the constrictions. Why? Because it brings within it fearful memories of our past. So when we have fearful memories of our past, it makes us unable to have faith and trust about our present and our future, leaving us unable to believe. We can't believe then. Fear causes resistance to change, keeping us in a safe or familiar place, making us unable to move from our comfort zones, even if these places may cause and precipitate a miserable existence. Some causes of constriction are lack of generosity of monetary or material goods, which can suppress our emotions, not allowing them to see, or us to see, who we truly are. See, whether or not you're praised or supported, understand that your beliefs count. Inability to forgive, holding on to judgmental, hateful, or vengeful feelings, these restrictions can cause what we've been talking about these shows, constrictions within our body, mind, and spirit. Not to mention all of the positive life forces that want to nurture and please us, that are all within us and around us. These constrictions that are formed can cause restrictions of our breath, as we've talked about. The inability to hold or make eye contact. A lack of zeal and zest for life. Deep sincerity or spontaneity. And the inability to share with others emotions and feelings. So that's what constriction is. Number 2, denial. So denial, see, is a very elusive word because no one likes to admit it. No, not me. See, on the contrary, we're all in a state of denial about something. But the worst kind of denial is to ourself, or that we have a higher self. So the worst kind of denial is that we recognize that we're spirit. That's the worst denial. See, unfortunately, our society has taught us that we are just body and mind, showing little or no concern of how to nurture our spirit body. Remember, I talked about, we need food for the body, but we need food for our spiritual body as well. See, when we show little or no concern of how to nurture our spiritual body, which could allow us the conscious ability to transcend with our physical into the spiritual realms of reality, which are much greater than the physical world in which we live in. See, many times as children in such a structural society, what happens is we lose our ability to be individuals and free thinkers, so as not to lose the pace with our peers. So we evolve late in many areas of our self-awareness, or we don't evolve at all. We often deny our true feelings in order to please or impress others, or we become fearful that we're going to be rejected, or there will be a reprisal against us. See, we're denying ourselves the freedom to see and experience the beautiful things in life, and we forget that today is a gift. You can never live this day again. See, our lives are based on the moment. We cannot live in or change the past or future, and much of our lives are wasted in these two realms of consciousness, not realizing that this very moment will become our past and is our guide and reality to our future. Number 3, evolution of the soul. See, our very existence in this physical body, in the world today, is a process evolutionary of our spirit. See, at any given moment, we have been given free will to do and be as we choose. That's important. We have free will and choice to be and do as we choose. But due to this unbelievable gift of free will, we don't often stop to think of how our conscious behavior affects us in the intangible realms, in the unseen world. It is with purpose. See, there's a purpose why ourself as a spiritual being has manifested again in this lifetime in a physical body. There's a conscious reformation of the spirit. See, the physical body is the vehicle that allows the spirit to transform and manifest its reality for our continued evolving, our evolution. It is important that we realize the reformation of the spirit, as I said, is a conscious one. See, refraining, this is the key here. And a lot of individuals in our seminars get confused about what this means. Refraining from doing conscious wrong or good for our own well-being is the fight of our whole existence. Refraining from doing conscious wrong or good for our own well-being is the fight of our whole existence. We must learn to become awake and to understand the impact of our choices. Number 4, abstaining from life. See, we were all created to participate in this challenge called life. Each and every person matters as an individual and is part of the whole. We're all interconnected. in more ways than you could imagine. See, without participating in life, we lose our will and ability to thrive. And when we don't thrive, we die a little every single day, and we cause our own subconscious doom and breakdown. See, life does not call upon us to be like a Nike advertisement, where it says just do it. To be considered thriving participants of life. We need to acquire a passion for life and all its wonders, and incredibly, we don't need to travel far for an awakening, nor is there too young or old an age to be inspired by great thoughts and ideas. I hear a lot of times people say, oh, I'm too old, I'm this, it's good for you, I can't do it. No. See, sharing and openly receiving inspiration ignites change. See, natural force healing and where we're moving, people, is about change in the world. Global consciousness. We want to change. We're going to rock this planet. It's about conscious change that we all have to do this together. And we're inviting you to become part of this team that we're trying to do, so that we can change the world through the use of this system and these powerful energies that, as I've said earlier, want to nurture and please us and are there for us and can change the planet. They really can. See, it says that this challenge can transform the mundane into the sublime and can open the doors for our ability to transcend beyond the walls in which we may be sitting. You have to take the challenge. Abusive nature. Through all of it, we've survived. We've survived all of this. Man is not only abusive to himself, but to all of his kind, trying to find fault instead of similarities. And we overwhelm all of our senses to the point of destruction. And then we encourage other people to follow us. Tragically, we're taught to be abusive by our times and society. It's actually acceptable socially. Tragically, we're taught by our times and society. We don't even have an inkling of most of their own abusiveness. We're taught to work hard and play harder in order to belong and to acquire. Because of this, we've lost our sense of peace, simplicity, and the deep need for spiritual tranquility. We've become numb to our own sense of reality, and we're lost among the ruin. So these are the 5 fiery elements, the cornerstone in natural force healing work, the basis for breakdown in body, mind, and spirit. But what's beautiful is in the process of the system that these layers of that onion, when they get peeled away, these change in a person remarkably. So there's a lot of you for you to think about. And it's interesting, as many times as I've read that, I always hear it another way, because it's truth, it's pure, unadulterated material. Have a good night.